Hi everybody, I'm going to jump right in and I'm going to be talking about discernment of spirits and also give an example that you can relate to that does involve addicts, alcoholics, and people that are in active addiction, and then also just to illustrate this point in terms of people taking advantage of you. So this is to help people to see what they don't see and help other people to level up. Okay, so here we go. I find it interesting that there are two camps of people, okay? People that have cars and people that don't have cars. So people that have cars, they're going to pay for insurance, they're going to pay for maintenance, they're going to pay for their car payment or whatever things that need to go on the car in terms of oil changes and new tires and etc. Okay, because they're going to be a responsible person that takes care of their vehicle. Okay, that's someone who is responsible. That's who I'm talking about in this instance. And then you have people that don't have cars. Okay, and the people that don't have cars, they're gonna proclaim very loudly to everybody how it's so much better that they don't have cars because they don't need a car and that they live in the city, or they can walk everywhere, or they have other priorities, and with Uber and this and that, they don't need a car. But when it comes down to it, the people that don't have cars, that are your quote friends or acquaintances, are business associates, when they need something that requires a car and you have a car and they know you have a car, and in this case a truck, they're going to call on you and they're going to ask for their requests. So let me give you an example. So if I have someone who is quote a business associate / friend, okay, and that person I hire to work on specific carpentry projects, then I'm going to hire that person, pay that person for their skills in carpentry, and they're going to help me complete a particular project. At the end of the day, I'm going to pay that person for their time working on that project. And our relationship at the end of the day is complete. Now, if there is for some reason extenuating circumstances, or the project is not complete, or there's something that part is missing and we have to reconvene another time, we schedule another time to get together, and then we keep going. But if at all possible, I will conclude business that day and pay that person so we are even, that there's nothing hanging between me and this person. However, if the person who is without a car, who happens to be a carpenter, says, hey, I have a run that I need to go to Home Depot and you have a truck. How about instead of you paying me for today's work, instead you drive me to Home Depot, you help me ride to all these other job sites, drop off all these materials, it's going to take this many hours, and we'll just trade dollars and hours and time, and then that way you don't owe me any cash today, and I get my needs met as far as these deliveries and picking up orders and delivering things, etc. And if it is in allowance with my schedule and it feels like it's a win-win, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to help the person out and I'm going to help them do all their errands. And there's no cash exchange. It's a barter exchange of skills and skills, or resources and resources. Okay. But at the end of the day, we're good. Okay. There's nothing lingering. Now, if a project is incomplete and we're going to reschedule another time for us to complete that project, and I have already pre-purchased materials for that project, and there's going to be a deadline of how long I can keep these materials, and if I don't keep the materials by this time, they have to be returned, etc. And I explain all that to the person. I say, I really need to get you on the schedule because of this, and if we're not going to get together, then I need to take these materials back because I can't hold this inventory and wait a couple months until you're available again, etc. Well, this person was putting me off indefinitely, and I had to keep going back to Home Depot and returning all these things and returning things to Amazon, and it was getting really crazy because I could not get this person back on the calendar because he was busy with other work. So the bottom line is, I made other decisions to then start working with other people because this person wasn't available. And I lost out on some of my materials because he spec'd the job for those materials, but I couldn't return the materials in that time frame because the receipts were expired. Okay, it had to be done in a certain time frame. So the bottom line is that person was taking advantage of me, even though I was clear about what I could and couldn't do and what the timelines were. Bottom line, when I finally got together with this person again to work on a project, it involved an electrical project, and there was carpentry involved to build the housing or the cabinet for these batteries. And I, again, was very specific about how I wanted it and the measurements in terms of where I wanted it to be. And this person was not listening to what I said, and they wanted to do something different. And I questioned their design. And I kept being told, I don't know what I'm talking about because I'm an amateur and he knows because he's done this before and I need to just trust him. And I thought, okay, maybe he's right, and I'm going to let go and let him lead this project, and I'm going to trust that it's going to turn out right. Well, the bottom line is he built this cabinet for these batteries, and he told me that it was secure, and he told me that it was complete, and I told him that I had other, things and plans, and that I needed to be in transport and travel mode, and I needed to make sure that everything was safe for me to travel. And he assured me that it was safe to travel and that everything was locked in and that everything was fine. So I left. And, I was preparing to leave. And when I was getting ready to leave, the person then had a riff with me, and they were acting out in their drug and alcohol addiction. And my agreement was, while we're working on a project, I have your time, I'm paying for your time, and I don't want you drinking, I don't want you drugging and doing pot or whatever. I want you clear and sober-minded while we're working. And that was the agreement. But in the evening, I could not dictate what that person did with their time in the evening in their apartment. I don't have that control. But the next day when we were agreeing to get together and to do the project, the point is the person was not in their right mind. And when I needed them to be in their right mind to secure these batteries and this cabinet to make sure that it was safe to travel and drive, he assured me that it was safe. And so as I was collecting my belongings and I was preparing for travel, he got irritated thinking that I'm not coming back. And I explained to him, you're not getting me on the calendar, and I have to take some of my materials with me right now because I can't leave all this here because I have other projects that involve other people, and I'm going to need those supplies with me. So I'm going to need to put them in the van, and I can't store them here. And he got into an argument. He was acting out in his addiction, and he raised his voice. He said some really nasty things to me, and I left. He attempted to try to put me on a guilt trip, and I was very clear that I was not going to accept that type of treatment. I was not going to accept that type of verbal abuse, and that I was not going to work with somebody who was not clean and sober, period. And that was it. So I cut off contact with this person, have had zero contact with this person. And in addition to that, like I said previously, sometimes people will ask me to help them in other areas of their life that I have other skills in that they don't have skills in. And one of those areas is administrative. And because I can read and I have a college degree and I have administrative and executive computer skills, and this person did not, they asked me to handle other responsibilities for them. But again, they weren't completing their end of the agreement with me to complete my project. And I said to them, I'm not doing your project anymore because you haven't completed mine. The agreement was, I'm doing this for you and you're doing this for me. But if you're not going to get me on the calendar, then I'm not going to be doing all of your other, paperwork things and digital things that you want me to do because you're not doing what you said you were going to do for me. That's where the agreement fell apart. Not on my part, on his part. So the bottom line is, he tried different sketchy tactics to try to get my attention. I ignored him, I blocked him, and I haven't talked to him for several months. And recently I got a message saying, let's forgive and forget, and I really want to talk to you. It's been so long. And here's the bottom line, okay? And this is again where I talk about on some of my posts about the difference between how Jesus says, repent and sin no more, versus someone who is like, oh, whatever, free for all, you can do whatever you want to do. It doesn't really matter. But that's not where I stand, okay? So the bottom line is, I had parameters of what was acceptable and what was not acceptable while we worked together. He violated those agreements, and then he violated the agreements of time of when we were going to get together to complete the projects. And then when he didn't fulfill his end of the bargain, I was not going to fulfill my end of the bargain, because it was not a win-win situation. So I departed and I cut my losses, and I said, that's it. I don't need that drama in my life. I don't need that type of hassle. I'm going to do something in a different way. And since then, I have learned with other people and other people that have different skill sets. I've learned a lot on my own with YouTube and working with my father, and we have learned so much, and it has been a joy to work together. Now, here's the bottom line. This person reached out to me again and wanted to have contact with me again. And this is where, again, this is what the devil does. The devil comes only to lie, kill, steal, and destroy. And the point is, this person, by their behavior, has already demonstrated on other accounts that he is inappropriate, that he's verbally abusive, that he's in active addiction, and he is not in a clear mindset. And let's talk about the event that actually happened that really triggered my belief and distrust in him. So approximately, I don't know, maybe it was a year ago or so, I had gone on a trip and I was going to a park. And this is after this cabinet with the electrical batteries was built. And so I'm on this, simple ride. It was about an hour's drive. And when I got to the destination, I heard this thump and I was like, what is that? And by the time I parked and got the van secure and opened everything up, the entire cabinet that he had built had collapsed, okay? And all the batteries that were attached to one another with all these wirings were all like in a jumble, and it was a fire hazard, okay? And I am far away from home, at least an hour away. I needed physical labor of someone's help to lift each of these batteries is 75 pounds. They're all connected with all these wires. I don't know about the wires at this point, and I needed somebody to help me. And I eventually had to call my father, who happened to be willing to make the drive to come try to help and rescue me, in addition to calling the fire department, who helped me and my father move these batteries one by one so that we could get everything in a safe format, so that I could then get in the car and travel to go back home to then unhook all these things and then start over again. Now, this man that I paid several $100s to build this cabinet, to make a safe place for these batteries, who is an expert carpenter, he was an addict in active addiction, drinking and smoking pot, against our agreement of clean and sober during the day and being clean and sober for work. And the point is, if that had gone even more, just a little bit slighter bad, my entire van could have blown up. Okay? That's the seriousness of taking care to make sure that batteries are safe. Now, my point in this is, this same person is calling me, hey, we haven't talked to each other in a long time, let's forgive and forget. I don't forgive, quote, an accidental death threat on my life because someone wasn't careful enough to remember how to secure a cabinet so that it doesn't fall apart when you're an expert carpenter. Okay? Now, my point is this. Discernment. Sometimes we make excuses for people because we've known them so long, or we've seen quality of their work and we think, oh, well, I've seen this and he did such a great job with that. He could do the same thing with me. Here's the bottom line. A person who's in active addiction, who is not in their right mind, is not right with God. And if you're not right with God, you're not going to be right with the project. Period. It's still going to come back to that same principle. Sin or God. If you're in active sin, you're not the true expert and help that you think that you are, because you're not even aware of how terrible your sin is and the impact that it can have to actually almost kill somebody because of negligence. So I leave you with that thought of discernment, discerning of spirits, addicts and active addiction, alcoholics and active addiction, weighing your options and choosing differently. Have a great day, everyone. Have a good afternoon.